Hey everyone, it's Jay Kirby, pro wrestler and host of the Kirbside Podcast, and you are listening to John the Ninja.
How you doing? It's John the Ninja live in the dojo, aka the Dojing, aka the John the Ninja Studios. And you know this, man, I got a guy with me today. I've had so much fun with him. He's been so gracious to me, and not only his exploits, but when we were getting together. So fast track, let me pull it back for you real quick. You guys know that I was training to be a professional wrestler. I love wrestling. I still love wrestling. I ain't gonna lie to you, all that shit's real. I remember got hit so hard one time, I had to question where I was. It was crazy. But I ended up meeting a lot of great characters and a lot of good guys. Kick Swift Washington, Kevin was a good dude to me. You know, we got a lot of other brothers, but this one guy, he was so courageous, so kind to me, but he was also a good time. And we call him the Lost Boy Kirby. But joking aside, Kirby's not only a veteran who's still in the military, he's not only a professional wrestler, he also has his own Kirbside podcast. He's been a great friend to me. He's invited me to wrestling shows. Hell, he's even let me grab his belts for him. Listen, being a roadie for wrestlers, that's some real shit right there. So I figured we would chop it up and talk because he's been such a good friend to me. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Kirby. Good sir, how you doing?
Well, thank you, Ninja. That was a wonderful intro, man. I feel like a star right now. Wow, thank you.
You look like one. I gotta hold on. Let me get my microphone too. All right. Where's my headset? Shit.
No, I have to have this thing like right in camera because if I speak any farther back, the quality isn't as clean as if I'm like right here talking into it. So I have to have it like right on camera, unfortunately, because of this all this arm and wiring that you see bothers me. Like it sets my OCD off like none other.
But man, when I remember when I saw that room, because I think what was it? You guys just moved in there, or were you going up on a year? Because it was yeah.
It's about that was sorry, I got to do math in my head. About 2019, summer of 2019, I moved into this place. This room has seen some changes, and the house has seen some changes. I'm now in the actual office. I'm running the show instead of just out in the living room with little iPhone ear jack. Now I've got like, the mic, I've got the camera. Here I don't generally do this, but like I got my little nerd setups on the wall.
Oh, you got Dragon up there. All right, fam.
Oh yeah. Oh man, you should know I'm Dragon Ball Z fan for life. So I got some Goku art. I got signed Ricky Steamboat. That's a signed Luke Cage.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Michael Coulter was super awesome, but I'm telling you now, that man is Batman because I saw him at his booth. I turned, I go, hey, he's at his booth. We should go. Gone. Vanished.
I had that happen in New York when I was, oh my God, the first time I saw Maiden, and there was a girl there, and we were talking back and forth, and I was like, at the end of the show, I'm gonna offer a ride home. She's been so nice. We've been talking. So I look at her. Maiden just got done. I was like, that was a great show, right? She nodded. I looked, gone. I was like, gone. What the fuck? I turned around, massive amounts of people. So I know what you mean. But family, for the people that don't know you, start from the beginning. Where you from?
Ooh.
What got you into the military and wrestling? I want you to hit both points.
Okay.
And then we'll go from there because I've seen you wrestle. I was just talking to Anthony about this. And even Kevin too, because Kevin just did an event and he's talking about like how they were like doing some weird stuff to the ring, man, like putting staples in the middle and stuff. I was like, listen, go talk to Kirby. All right, listen, I'm just saying the stuff I've seen him wrestle on. I'm like, he might call you a bitch. So like, So walk us through your early upbringing and then your wrestling and
okay. So young Jay Kirby grew up in a very small town in the middle of nowhere called Frankfort, Indiana. So if you look at a map of Indiana, Indianapolis is dead center. I grew up here, like a smidgen just above Indianapolis, middle of a cornfield with nothing out there. Always been kind of a wrestling fan ever since I was a kid. I was not a fan of the Monday Night Wars because I was young. I was 5 or 6 when Nitro was like in its full swing. So I watched Nitro. I never watched Raw,
Mm.
Mom did not like Raw's content during the Attitude Era, shockingly. So I didn't get to watch Raw growing up. I watched Nitro. I was a Nitro kid. Eventually they started getting a little edgier as well, and Mom's like, no more wrestling. Roughly, actually, I know exactly when it was. It was 2003. This is a build up to Survivor Series. Vince McMahon versus The Undertaker, buried alive. As a kid, because I was probably 11 or 12, I didn't understand what pay-per-view was. So I thought every night was the series, and that every night was gonna be that match. Next week was gonna be Taker versus Vince. So I begged my dad every night, can I stay up and watch SmackDown? Can I stay up and watch? Because I found it like flipping through the channels, and we all watched it, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. I got to see this match. And then, next week, no one else wanted to watch, but I was like, I don't want to miss this. Can I stay up late and watch it? And that just grew into me watching SmackDown every week. Then, because this is where the stories start intertwining, about done with high school, my senior year. Still loving wrestling, still obsessed, and it is an obsession. And I didn't really have a plan for after high school. And so my dad jokingly I got one of those recruitment postcards in the mail. And so my dad would make the jokes, you should join the Marine Corps and you'll get a free duffel bag. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna jump right on that. Eventually, I think the Air Force sent me something, and my dad was in the Navy for 4 years when he was young. And so he's like, maybe you should give this some actual thought. Like Air Force, they're not gonna murder you like if you tried to join the Marine Corps. I was like, okay. So I started looking into it, and I, like, for some reason, and granted, it sounds dumb now because where I've been in the service and where I thought I was going to go in the service are two totally different places. So I didn't want to be stuck in the US. I wanted to go place. I want to go see things, because I grew up with my dad telling stories about, oh, this time when he was in Korea, or this time that he was in the Philippines. I was like, I want that. I want those adventures. So I said I didn't want to join the Air Force. I'm just going to join the Navy and be like Dad. Little did I know that I was going to get stuck in the States, joining the Navy, and not get to go overseas. I think I'm coming up on 12 years that I've been in. Yeah. It has been a weird journey. But no, join the Navy, March of 2010. That's when I did my swear-in ceremony, graduated high school, and I think I left for boot camp in November. With wrestling, however, this is where it starts to intertwine, because back home, two of my friends wanted to start their own wrestling company, and I was ecstatic. I was like, I want to be a part of this. I am 100% on board. I'm going to do whatever I need, because I didn't know what indie wrestling was. I didn't know anyone in the business. Small town Indiana, there's not a lot of connections to, hey, a show in Philly this weekend or a show up in NYC. So, like, I didn't have that. You got the rare occasions when Raw or SmackDown came to Indianapolis, and that was it. So they're like, we want to start a company. I was like, I'm gonna be a part of this. This is gonna be awesome. So then I go to boot camp. I start going through boot camp. I start going through all my schools. Eventually get stationed in Virginia. Virginia Beach specifically. I was on NES Oceana. I was working on F-18s, which was pretty cool. It got frustrating at times. 18s are old and broken down, and we had to fix them at ungodly hours. But it was really cool to, be on the flight line. You've seen Top Gun, right?
Yeah.
The dudes who do the hand signals and then the plane takes off. That was my job. I got to do that. That was me. I did the hand signals, and then the plane would take off.
So that's what my cousin does the same thing. My cousin Anthony, but I don't know where the hell he is now. He's so elusive.
Hmm.
I guess that's a family trait. We just kind of disappear and then show up. But no, I know exactly what you're talking about because he was doing his damnness to be a fighter pilot for the longest time. So he's telling us stories about when he was shipped out in the Pacific and then all the shit that was happening. So I definitely understand. I mean, the audience might not know, but I have an idea of what you're speaking of.
Yeah.
Did you ever have a moment where the cable snapped or like you were directing a plane and somebody almost like
Um,
killed? That's the only thing I could ever think
so
like
no,
scared me
I
if I was doing it.
never was on a carrier. I fell into this weird portion of the Navy called FTS, which is basically I'm a reservist with active duty hours. Everything that looks big Navy and numbers wise, I fall under the reserves, but I still go to work and get stationed like I'm active duty. So the particular squadron I was at, I never saw a ship, luckily. I did have a few like scary moments. Um so like I had a friend who got shocked by a canopy. Like he got shocked by the glass on the jet, and I think what is it? My goodness, it's been so long since I remember. I think the canopy can hold up to 100,000 volts of electricity. So like you can legit like get blown off the side of a plane if you catch one of those charges. He was lucky. It was just like his three fingertips like hit the canopy and he felt the tinge through his arm. And so like he immediately ran to the hospital, but like I was right next to him and he like puts his hand on it, he just goes, ah, and I was like, what just happened? And he goes, the canopy just shocked me. So like, red lights and alarms start going off. The other one is regardless of if you're on the carrier or not, F-18s do have that hook that catches them, and they have like 3,000 pounds of psi pressure on them. And generally, when you tell, because you have to check, make sure the hook comes down when you're working. So I give the hand signal for the hook to come down so we can check it. And it normally just like comes down like a little mechanical, like a little mechanism. Then you check, okay, it's good, it's not going, and it raises back up. Well, this time the tail hook drops with all of that pressure and literally crack the concrete underneath it. So like thank goodness no one was underneath there because that would have been really bad. But like, you're on a loud flat line, you just hear boom. I was like, what the fuck was that? And I just see the tail hook in the concrete and I was like, oh man. So like that was I would say the scariest thing that I've had happen. Luckily, I haven't had any like actual terrifying close calls, like a cable snap or anything of that nature.
But still, man, those stories, and you guys are the only ones that will ever have those stories. That's part of like the brotherhood. Like I always keep that in the back of my mind. Like I can never really claim because it's different. It's like when I tell people about running cross country or like what we do in wrestling. Until you take a hit from Aaron Ash, you
Oh,
really can't
oh man,
register.
I love Aaron, but man, I'm not. That's a he can work light it when he wants to, but if he wants to be snug, he's gonna be.
Oh my god, that hit I always tell people about, that was him being snug, and I realistically, I think I owed him a receipt, not like a bad receipt. I think I, like, pissed him off, and he was like, "Well, Imma get you back," but he gave me a really good snug hit, perfectly safe to the neck, and I think it was me, him, and Anthony, but damn, he hit me, I was like, "Oh shit, that hurt," and then I realized I
Right.
was on the floor, I was like, "Damn." I ain't been hit like that in a long time. Fuck. All right, back
Uh,
up. And even though we didn't click on a friend level like everybody else did, he was always courteous,
yeah.
good worker with me. So back to it. So your boys, you're in Virginia now. Your
Yep.
boys, they're doing business, and you still want to be part of that.
So they are trying to get it off the ground. They have a concept, they have an idea, they've got belts. And so this is where the wrestling origin comes in, because I'm constantly messaging him. All right, I've got this idea. Can I do this? And they go, no, you can't do that. You're not properly trained. Okay, well, what if I did this? You can't do that. You're not trained to do that. What if I did that? Like, it was manager. What if I was a ref? What if and every time I kept getting shut down, and eventually it pissed me off. And I didn't have anything against them, but like I got mad. Like, I'm trying to bring things to the table and everything I say keeps getting shut down. I was like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm going to go find a wrestling school. I'm going to be trained, and you're going to make me a part of this company, whether you like it or not. And so that's when I started training. I literally Googled wrestling schools in Virginia Beach. And I found Southside Pro Wrestling, which was about a mile and a half from the base. And I literally got this is how much money I had to my name. I got on my bicycle and rode down. I don't remember what freaking road is in front of NAS Oceana, but like I rode down the literal highway on my bike, got to this school, and started training. Started training September, October-ish of 2011, and I debuted February of 2012.
That's impressive, because that's a quick turnaround. I mean, regardless of what anybody says on the indie circuit, that's still a really quick turnaround for somebody to say, hey, he's safe enough to work.
Mhm.
I always took pride in the fact that I somehow survived CZW's indoctrination. Like, I
Mhm.
always keep it a secret. I don't give people details, but before I jumped into wrestling and I was studying, I read Shinsuke Nakamura's book.
Mm.
And I was pretty much all, I was
Oh,
pretty much
I love
like,
Nakamura, by the way. Nakamura is one of my favorites, like King of Strong Style. I want to like just grab that and somehow just not, I don't even need a percentile of a fraction of that kind of charisma, and I would be amazing. Like, I love Nakamura, but please continue.
I love him too, man. I heard he's gonna get a push now too. That's what I'm excited about. Because that's what should have happened. We'll figure it out. But
Please, wrestling gods, let it happen.
every school's got their own little thing. Some kind of
Mhm.
just beat the crap out of you. If you come back the next day, okay, you're good. Other
Right.
places like WWE, they're gonna work you till you're tired, and then okay, let's see. Um, I went in there with the expectation I'm not even gonna see the ring. I'm about to get my ass kicked. So when I got through and Aaron said, "Okay, you're done," and I had that talk with DJ, I felt a little bit of like, thank God, because
Mhm.
I knew if I quit, I probably wouldn't have gotten in. But I'm
Right.
also like, dude, that next week I couldn't walk. Like, I had to sit down. I From all the squats, I had to sit down step by step.
Yep.
And so I was curious how your tryout went. How are they down there? How was it compared to like CZW's or like even Al Snow stories where they just beat the crap out of him and said, okay, screw you.
So luckily for me, my school wasn't like that. Now granted, I had played football in high school, so I played football and I tried out for the wrestling team. I did not make it. It was rough. It was harsh. But I played football, so I know running the suicides, and now granted, I know I don't look it now, but in high school I was 5'11", 170 pounds soaking wet, and somehow made it onto the O line and got bounced around by the 6'4", 270 left tackle, the 6'1", 250 guard, and the 6'1", 260 center. Like, we had monsters on our sophomore year. So I've I've been through the initiation process for certain things. But luckily for wrestling, I didn't have to go through that. Um they kind of welcomed me in, showed me what was up with like how to run the ropes, how to do bumps. And they wouldn't the thing about the school that I trained at is they wouldn't let you go to the next thing until you could do the first thing like damn near perfect.
Mhm.
So I wasn't allowed to learn bumps until I could run the ropes perfect. And perfect might be a strong word, but like a competent worker, not any kind of flaw.
Now, did that include like push-offs and reversals, or is that just you running back and
That
forth?
was just me hitting the ropes back and forth, them watching my feet, making sure that um the correct foot came out. I had to do it in 3 steps. Any less, or any more, do it again. If I did it in 4 steps, do it again. 3 steps. 1, 2, 3, turn. And so like they made sure that I had my basics. Then I learned to bump, and I didn't move on from back bumps until I could take a clean back bump. So on and so forth until eventually I started learning lockups, headlocks, we had, tackle drop down spots, stuff of that nature.
And the thing I loved about CZW, I know they get a bad rap. We're not going to hear to talk trash on them. My experience there was very positive, especially with the
Mhm,
teachers. We had Joe Gacy and rest in peace Jimmy Rave.
mhm.
Especially Rave with his psychology. I remember I fucked up a match so bad one time as a referee, and I didn't know when refs count, that little
Mhm.
trick they do for the three, and they don't, get the third, we're supposed to do
Mhm.
something. No one told me that. So I would hit the ground on three, and the crowd would think it's over, and I'm like, no, it's two,
Uh,
confusing them and killing it. And I was just like, but he took me aside and he put me on. It's like, hey, this is how the psychology of that works. And I
mm,
think that's the best lesson, because that honestly, that was probably the greatest wrestling match I've ever been a part of, like not just like in the ring, but
mhm,
watching, because that's what they were talking about as far as being able to control the crowd and the emotions and the crowd
mhm.
feeding. It was just, Jordan Oliver and his boys are something special.
Oh yeah. Oh
So
yeah.
when you got to the point you're confident, you're a wrestler now, was there a moment where you're like, okay, if I don't do anything else, if I never make it to WWE or anything else, what is in your mind? Like, I just want to do this one move, or I want to be able to come back to the guys and say, look, you're gonna hire me. What was that end game after you finally had your bearings? And it's like, you know what, I could actually do this. I can actually go
So
indie wise.
so ironically enough, going into wrestling, I knew that I wasn't shooting for WWE. I wasn't shooting for Impact. Wasn't shooting for Ring of Honor. Because my focus, and I had a very long drawn out conversation with my parents about this, because my parents did not support me as well, let me rephrase that. I'll tell the story of how my parents reacted to, hey, I'm going to be a pro wrestler, in a second. I knew going in, military is my career, wrestling is my hobby and my passion. So I'm gonna go to work. I'm gonna do my job as damn good as I can, and then when I get off work, time to go to wrestle. So I knew going in that I wasn't shooting for WWE. Now, granted, if I ever got that opportunity, if someone walked up and said, "Hey, we want to sign you," I'm not gonna say no. I'm not stupid, but I wasn't gonna, sacrifice a very good career for the maybe chance possibility. Whereas a lot of people that and that's not a knock on anyone who does that, and it's not a knock on anyone who's out here grinding trying to get noticed. That's what you guys got to do, and I respect every single person trying to get noticed by, WWE, AEW, New Japan. Um but like that wasn't my goal. My goal was to just have fun and go out there and be in front of a crowd, because I've always loved it, and I've always found it like an escape, because I wasn't exactly super popular as a teenager, and no one really understood, well, still kind of, I feel like sometimes people don't understand me. But when you're in a ring and people are booing you or cheering you, none of that matters. What matters is that you're getting that reaction from a crowd. And whether it be as a babyface and getting cheered, being part of, you know, Sons of Liberty and getting those USA chants, or whether it be the most dastardly heel in all of UWC and people, you know, calling you a chicken shit in the parking lot, you're getting a reaction out of that crowd. And that was always my goal, is just be in front of the crowd and be out there doing what I loved. There I did have an accomplishment, because you brought him up. I had one accomplishment that I didn't think I'd ever get, but I did. And that was, I wanted to wrestle someone from WWE. When I did that, then that became, I want to wrestle someone from every major promotion. So my first biggest, my probably still to this day, my biggest match ever, as I got to wrestle the Barbarian.
Nice.
I got to wrestle him and his nephew Asafi in a tag team match. Granted, this was still 2012, so I am green. Hold on. I'm as green as, oh, here we go. Perfect. I'm as green as this pop figure. Like, and for those who can't see this, I'm holding up a Ninja Turtle figure. Okay. Green. I didn't know anything about wrestling, but I had a popular gimmick. The crowd liked me, and my trainer said, "Do you want to work Asafi and his uncle at our show in May?" And I was like, "Yes, yes, 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 yes." That's all I could say, because it's a Barbarian. I'm not going to say no. And also, Barbarian is one of the just chillest, nicest people, most professional dudes I've ever met in my life. That man is in his 60s and could kick my ass today. Like, he is still built, he's still massive, he's still strong enough to rip the door off a hinge, but he's very chill, very calm. Love Barbarian to death. So I wrestled him, which meant I got to wrestle someone from WWF and WCW. And I was like, all right, now I want to wrestle someone from Impact. I want to wrestle someone from New Japan. I want to wrestle someone from Ring of Honor. So then fast forward a few years later, and I move up to Jersey, and I'm wrestling for UWC, a couple other places, and GTS. When along comes the day when Grim asks me, "So who wants to wrestle Jimmy Rave today?" And my hand shut up so fast, like it could have broke the sound barrier. I was like, me. I want to wrestle Jimmy. Please, can I wrestle Jimmy? Please. And this was literally what I was doing. Jimmy's trying not to laugh at this giant child, going, "Please let me wrestle him, please."
Please let him kick my ass, basically.
Yeah. And then when they said, "Yeah, sure, let's do it," I forgot everything. Like, I didn't remember how to wrestle, because he's like, "All right, what's your offense?" I was like, shit. So we put together this match. It was like 4 minutes, but I got to wrestle Jimmy Rave, and after that, me and Jimmy became friends. We got to talk. I used to be able to message him all the time just for advice. Loved Jimmy to death. And after that day, I got to say that I had wrestled someone from New Japan, Ring of Honor, Impact, WWE, and WCW.
And I did have another question, but I wanted to touch, because Jimmy was such an important part to the CZW crew learning before he passed away.
Yeah.
What was the best lesson you learned from him? I already told you mine. Like, even I had a session with him on the side where he, like, hey, this is what managers do, this is what refs do. Like, we were trying to find, like, what I could still do outside of wrestling, because it got to a point where I was like, you know what, I love this, but I feel like, you know what, I could do the same amount of, not trying to be, cruel about it. I could do the
Mhm.
same amount of damage to my body doing martial arts, and I could do all this same damage to the body, but I feel like I could be more of a force outside of the ring, or reffing or something. So he took me aside. But again, the biggest lesson I ever learned was that 3 count, how to control the crowd as a ref, to help the wrestlers control them even more. So what was the best lesson from Jimmy that you received?
So it's gonna sound super tiny and super minute, but it clicked when he said it. I had heard it before, but it clicked when he said it. And that is the heel's job is to make the babyface look good. And I didn't like I might have heard that in passing, but I'd always heard you got to make the guy you're working with look good. When he said that, it just stuck. And especially for this past year, because I've been working heel for UWC, I have focused specifically on trying to get the guy that I'm working over as this guy should beat me. Everyone will cheer. And then, by at the end, I would go over, but like every single match I looked at, okay, I want to get to the point where everyone thinks this guy's going to do it. He's going to win, whether that be kick out of a move or whether it be, he hits me with a big signature and I just barely get my foot on the rope. Like him saying that clicked for me. And that was, just making sure the baby face looks good. And that is what I tried my hardest this past year, is to really make the guys I was working with look like stars.
And I can't mention the concept I'm thinking of off of what you're saying, because again, I still, even though it's all out there, I still try and protect the little bit that people don't
Mm,
know. But what you're saying, you know how a match goes and who's in charge. After saying that, that makes sense. But
yeah.
that's like back to the Carney days. So here's one that I always love. Wrestlers, and one of the guys from the rep said this when we had that. Oh my God, that was like probably the best class we had when the rep took over for Joe Gacy one night. But he said, "You guys are basically you're a fucking superhero." That was
Mhm.
verbatim what he said. Take your ego, take what you are, inflate it, everything that you couldn't be, everything that you are now, that is what your character has to be. So for me, I'm putting aside the idea of like personal identity, of like trying to figure out who I am. But I feel like I had so many facets of my personality, it was kind of hard to come up with a gimmick that wasn't just already me. Like if you ask anybody who's John the Ninja, my friends are gonna be like,
Mhm.
"Oh, he's the most caring guy. Oh, he's the craziest guy. Oh, this dude's this." Depending on who I'm with and depending on the time, everybody can have a story where it's like, "Yo, bro, one time we were at the club, John started wilding out, got behind the bar, and then the bartender thought he was supposed to be there." Or another time, my friend told me we were in Miami, and he's like, "Yo, I'm not going with you. I've been in this city." This was hilarious. When I sobered up the next day, he's like, "Bro, I've been in this city for 3 years. One night with you is the most fights I've ran into at clubs. Some of them were your fault, so we're not going out no more." Like, so it's like, trying to figure out what that inflates. That was a little harder for me. But you're saying that wrestling, it doesn't matter. But you found a good gimmick. You found a way to boost yourself up. What explain, walk me through the gimmick and how that personifies what wasn't seen in high school. What
Okay.
you hold.
So Jay Kirby has been a long, long process of trying to figure out. Okay. Because when I started wrestling, let me even rewind farther. When I watched wrestling as a fan, guys that I thought were the coolest were Macho Man, Shawn Michaels, just because they were both amazing. Like they were these flashy, charismatic dudes. But then other favorites were The Undertaker, Batista, Goldberg, dudes who went out there, kicked anyone's ass that they wanted, and then, you know, arrive, race hell, leave to steal someone else's trademark. Go out there, just kick everyone. And as a kid that wasn't popular and was bullied and felt lesser, being able to walk out and think I am the baddest man in this room, come fight me, like that's what I thought wrestling was. So when I started wrestling, I wanted to have a character like that. It didn't work out that way. I ended up getting the best and worst gimmick of my career. Best because God, it was fucking over. Worst because I despised it. I was a nerd.
Yeah, I was right.
I walked out with Argyle socks up to my damn calves, the stupid glasses, the pocket protector, the bow tie, the everything. I look straight up out of a Revenge of the Nerds movie. And for some reason, that gimmick got over. And you could not go to an SPW show without everyone chanting nerd. But but personally, I hated it because that's not what I wanted to be in wrestling. I wanted to be those other guys. So then when I finally lost the nerd gimmick, I tried to find what Jay Kirby was, and it took me a long time. Eventually, after tweaks here and tweaks there and changed this up here, eventually I got into basically turning everything you see behind me into a gimmick. You know, it I leaned into that more nerdy side of myself. And I realized that Jay Kirby doesn't, I mean, he can when he has to go out there and kick ass and chew bubble gum. But that's not the gimmick. The gimmick is that Jay Kirby is trying to be basically, especially if you've seen the new gear, because I know you have.
It looks
Rocking,
great too,
thank
man.
you, thank you. The new shirt, the morpher behind me, like it is me trying to be a superhero and do everything I can to look like a superhero without straight up going the hurricane with it. And so eventually I found that nice middle ground where it's me cranked up. I've got the Power Ranger-esque gear, and I want someone. I don't know who it's gonna be. I want someone someday to look, see Jay Kirby in the ring and go, that's a superhero. I want to be that. Because that's what I really want out of wrestling more than anything is I want someone to look up and say, I want to be that.
And you never know, man, because I still remember King Kong Bundy's crew, early
Mhm.
2000s, 2003, 4 came through to my home city and they did a show. I still remember those kids, man. I still remember the moves. And that's when I found out there was an indie scene. Like there was wrestling
Yeah.
outside of WWE. It blew my mind. But you still think back on those moments. So that's very doable. That's very
Mhm.
possible. But I I think the interesting thing more so is what you wanted watching the wrestlers and that you were able to
Mhm.
realize that. Sitting here, I'm like, damn, well, let me reevaluate all the wrestlers I liked. I loved Eddie Guerrero. I loved The Rock. You know, tough dudes, yes,
Yeah.
but in reality, you put them against the Undertaker. You put them against this so and so. They might get their ass kicked, but I think it was more so the fearlessness. Oh, unless Eddie
Mhm.
was being like Latino, he like, oh no, I didn't do it. But it was like I'm tough enough to go at it. I'm not afraid. I'm gonna fight you, even if I'm gonna lose. Bring it
Right.
on. So looking back at like the wrestlers, I think my people were always good on the mic. Those were just my favorite dudes. I love Cena, Rock, and all of them. Eddie,
Mhm.
if they could get you to laugh, wonderful. But so walk me through now because we gotta talk again. Gotta let the people know how you came to Jersey, because it is a blessing in disguise, even though this place sucks to live. If you're not married and have a job and everything,
uh,
this is such a wonderful scene for wrestling. The indie scene here, bar none, especially 2000s, 2010 time period, it was the place to be. Even if you go to Delaware, you go to Jersey, go to New York, it's the mecca of everybody's here, everybody's working together. So, how did you come to Jersey, and how has that benefited you in your push?
oh my God. So how I came to Jersey is I got orders here. I got orders to a little facility that's on the joint the yeah, it was really weird. Uh in the Navy, got orders to an Air Force base and the center that I worked at had Marines in it. So like it was the strangest military accommodation I could ever think of. But I ended up getting orders to the Air Force Base. I was there for 3 years, and just regardless of where I got orders, I was gonna keep wrestling. It happened to be here. And ironically enough, when I was looking for UWC, or I was looking into getting bookings, and a couple people mentioned like Sanctuary, Monster Factory, which are both great places, but I struggle a lot with self-esteem, confidence, anxiety. So like going to places like those two kind of freaked me out. And I was like, is there somewhere where I can start and work towards those goals? And a buddy of mine I was stationed with down in Virginia said, yeah, he used to be stationed here. And he's like, yeah, there was this place that ran out of the Browns Mills fire department, like the firehouse. So I had to do like investigative journalism to find this damn place. I had to find them on YouTube. Then I found a match, found the company name. Then I found like a guy that was on the show. Actually, I remember who it was. It was Jimmy Lyons.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Jimmy Lyons was the U.S. champion for UWC at the time. This was early 2015. This is probably like February or March. And so I shot him a message, and he's like, yeah, you got to find this guy named what is Joe's real name? I don't think it's Grana. He told me Joe Rule's name.
Mhm.
And he's like, find this guy on Facebook. I'm friends with him. Shoot him a message. And I went, okay. Found Joe Rules. Click, click, click. I'm so and so. I'm moving to the area soon. I would like a chance to work for you guys. He's like, okay. Let me know when you get here. End up moving here. I think I moved here in July of 2015. So September rolled around, I believe it was. Yeah, September rolls around. I messaged Joe. And this is how weird the wrestling world can work sometimes. I messaged Joe, hey, I see that you guys have a big Royal Rumble like show coming up. And I know business wise, he's gonna need people. He's gonna need numbers for that show. So I was like, perfect. I can slip into a battle royal and get my foot in the door. So I was like, you have anything open? He's like, unfortunately not. I'll, check with me next month. Maybe I'll have something. I was like, okay. And funny enough, the show was actually like 5 minutes from where I was living at the time. So I was like, I'll just go to the show anyway. Show Saturday night. I get a text at 9:30 on Friday. Hey, are you still available? Yes, I am. Click, click, send.
God's blessings.
And debuted in the UWC Wrightstown Rumble. And here I am. What is it? No, it is exactly 7 years. I hit 7 years last week. 7 years I've been working for UWC. Triple Crown champion. I think I'm their 6th Triple Crown champion. So I've held the tag titles, the US title, and of course the heavyweight championship.
As we bow down, good sir. Congratulations. What it is fabulous. You see these stories, and I'm just thinking about like all the people I just talked to, man. Like I just met a guy, he's a comedian. He was telling me he like knew Bernie Mac, and he's been in the presence of Michael Jackson, was like messing with his cane and everything. And you're just sitting there like the dude just looked like an old crazy, guy on the side. You would never know. So listening to your story, how it's playing out so beautifully, especially paying dues is something that everyone, it can be misunderstood, it could be over abused, but everybody has their time paying dues in the wrestling industry, helping set
Oh,
up and
yeah.
doing it. Even in Japan, New Japan guys, it's all the time, and they stay true to that tradition. What are some of the best shows you paid dues at, or what are some of the best moments somebody else was paying dues? Like for me, the top two best moments were one, I went to, I think it was Best of the Best, and MJF was paying dues. And, you know, we're right next to him and we're talking, and the guys took a really bad bump off the side of the ring. And he's like, I'm never doing that. And I'm thinking in my head, well, okay, man, if you think you can make it and not, and I told him, I was like, all right, man, listen. So he's like, yeah, I'm a wrestler. I'm going to be great. It's full MGF.
Oh yeah.
Great character. But I talked
Oh
to him,
yeah.
bro, if you make it, you know, good for you. And I wish you luck, and to see him rise. And then another one was like one of the last events. I'm pretty sure it was like Jordan Oliver was facing who did the lighting at CZW? I could see his face. I can still see his face. He was in Tournament of Death. Dan
Yeah.
faced Oliver in like a light twos match. There
Mhm.
was like a four-way battle for the CZW championship with Joe Gacy, and they had that little kid that came through. He's not little, his sister wrestles too. I'm not gonna mention his name, but it was probably the most fun I had working, because like
Mhm.
tables are getting destroyed. We had gloves, so I didn't have to worry about the blood this time, but it was just so much fun. So what are some of your paying dues stories, as I remember this guy's name?
Um okay. Well shit. So I've worked ring crew for, and I wouldn't even call it paying dues. I would just like being able to assist where I could, because the dues I paid, I won't lie to you, the dues I paid sucked.
Mm.
Like I drove in a very cramped car with two guys down to North Carolina once from Virginia, literally just built the ring and stood off in the concession area like the whole show. Now, granted, it was fine. It was an okay show, but like it was kind of just like a meh kind of night. I've definitely come home late from like a tattoo. We used to do a tattoo fest for the school where we would go to the literal Hampton Convention Center, set up the ring in the middle of the convention floor, and wrestle. And now, granted, the tattoo fest was awesome. Like the people loved it, but like getting there early and setting up the ring, and then having to drive back Sunday night after tearing down the ring and taking it off the truck and putting it in the school when it was just me, the owner, and like one other guy, because I was the only student that could make it. Like it was, the dues section kind of sucks. As far as being able to help shows that were really cool, um, I got to I got to be ring crew for a New Japan show in Philly. Um, I didn't I didn't do anything besides exactly what they told me, because I was scared of everyone in that fucking locker room.
Who'd you see? What, anybody at least?
Oh, everyone. Uh Tama Tonga, freaking Jay White. Uh Actually, I have a fun Jay White story about that night. Tama Tonga, Evil, Sonata,
No! Oh my god!
I think Naito was at the show. Friggin' Lance Archer. He actually, when we were done building the ring, he actually came up to the guys um working ring crew, and he's like, because a lot of them are Monster Factory guys. He's like, oh, thanks guys, we appreciate it, and you know, good luck out there. And I tell you this dude is big, like big as hell, because I'm 6'2". I can squeeze 6'3", depending on which shoe I'm wearing. And I had to do this to talk to this man. Super chill, like very chill. And
Mm.
he's just like, oh, thanks guys for your hard work. And I was just like, holy fuck. Um, but yeah, like I got to do a New Japan show. The coolest show ever, period, bar none. Now, granted, it was long and tiring and exhausting, and I would have done differently, but I still would have done it. Is I got to be ring crew for Supercard of Honor in New Orleans, because you asked the connection in the wrestling world. Being in Jersey, I have just going to GTS actually, because I met one person at UWC and they said you should go to GTS. I went to GTS and they knew everyone. I've met Nunzio. I've met Rhett Titus. I've met Dom Truex or Big Vin from
Mhm.
GCW. Also love Vin, love him to death. That dude is so awesome. Couldn't say a bad word about him. But like I've met him, I've met Rhett Titus, I've met Nunzio. We had someone else on the show. Like Grimm's brought in a lot of people. I'm just trying to remember the ones that I've met personally. Um he oh I get to say this now because he's famous. I got to wrestle Max Caster.
Whoa!
Yeah, like a gimmicky like Money in the Bank match where he was like number 6 of 7 and I was like number 5. And chill dude, never had a bad thing to say about him. I don't know if he would recognize me if we ran into one another, but like I followed him and I friend requested him afterwards, and we've been pretty cool. But yeah, now he's on TV. Now he's wrestling, Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland all the time. So like I'm so happy for Max to have the success he has. No, I got to be at Supercard. It was the last Supercard before AEW, because after that one is when they all started making All Elite. They might have done one after that, but it was basically Kenny, Cody, Hangman, Coda, the Bucks. I got to meet the Briscoes. I got to, and it was because I knew Rhett Titus, because I knew Rhett worked for Ring of Honor, and Rhett had been on GTS recently. So I messaged him. I was like, "Hey, I'm going to be in New Orleans for Mania, and I know Ring of Honor's running. Can I, how do I get on the ring crew?" And he's like, "Oh, just be here at this time. Click, click, click." And I was, and it was amazing. It was long, and I was tired, and
It was
it
a
was
long day.
exhausting, but it was awesome.
Thought I felt for Tournament of Death, and it was
Uh,
Dan O'Hare. Dan O'Hare, you were right, man. Dan
yep.
is a good dude too, but the sheer I just the two things I loved about CZW, it is a family. Those kids, those wrestlers, they stick together. But it's a day thing, man. If you
Mhm.
had any plans that day, you're there all night.
Yep.
You're breaking down, you're going, and Tournament of Death was the worst because I've never seen so much glass.
Uh, we because we were like shoveling it into the dumpster, weren't we? We had like a shovel and a push broom cleaning that damn parking lot out.
And no, but we didn't have no
Oh,
damn little picker uppers. So if we weren't shoveling it into
yep,
a trash bag, we were shoveling it down the damn parking lot. And I'm like,
yep.
Jesus, have mercy.
Oh my
That
goodness.
was the church next door. So
Yo, like I was nervous for that. I mean, you know that I don't generally talk about them, but like that day, my whole job was stand next to that fucking trampoline and make sure no one fucking touched it. No one. And I want to say it was DJ. DJ gave me full authority to just be like, if anyone touches it,
punch him.
get out. And I was like, okay, I will make sure that no one touches this thing. And I think I still have a video somewhere of me right there. Like you could, it was a video on Twitter, and you can see like over my shoulder of Connor coming down into it.
I
And
hope you
like
had your
if
earbuds in, man.
yeah, like if it was like an inch or two to the left, you would have seen all of me going, all right, back up, back up, back the fuck up.
Man,
Um, but it's really interesting being in the Jersey area and seeing a lot of people get noticed and a lot of people come up. Because I was at a show 2016. I was at a show in 2016 that um Damion Priest, that's his name. All I could think of was his indie name. Damion Priest was on at Monster Factory that I was at, and now he's on TV for WWE. Um, I've uh, I've been on shows with Sonny Kiss and MJF. Um, ironically enough, I met MJF right before he blew up. So like I was on a show with him and I was like, oh, this guy kind of knows what's up. And he was funny. I honestly, because I just met him in the back. I didn't see him on the show.
Mhm.
And then like 6 months later, he's on all in. I was like, oh shit, that's that guy. Then and now the rest is history. Now he's the one of the biggest heels in the business. Period. Same thing with Sonny Kiss. Met them at a show. I had heard of them. I had never met them. And then they were at the show, and I was like, oh, it's and got to talk to them. They were really chill, really cool. We're still friends. They message my brother all the time. I'm not like super close, like tight with them, but like I'm sure if I messaged him and been like, hey, how's it going, they would eventually respond. But yeah, and then I have a hilarious story about being remembered by someone through like one show, and now they're signed by somebody. So what was your question before I go into my story?
Let's go into that story because I had the same thing happen. Vinny Condom Man, he's a manager, but I was at a club in AC. Just to roll into your story, I was in club at AC, and I was dating this girl at the time, and I saw him, and I didn't know he was looking at me too, but I was looking at him. I was like, why does this fucking guy look so familiar? And then it turned out we both worked with CZW and whatnot, so that you
I
never know. So what was
I
that
did that
story?
with oh my goodness, I'm gonna botch his name and I'm sorry because he's actually really talented. Um J, oh my god, I gotta look it up because I feel bad.
We're
Um
gonna look it up.
it's like Jay Early, Jefferson Early, something like that.
We're looking it up.
Um Jason. Um he was in Casey Navarro's little group. He was his hype man. So
Oh
I
shit! I know who you're talking about.
yeah.
Okay, G.
So I ran into him randomly like 3 months before I went to CZW. I saw him at a Dave and Buster's with a CZW hat on. And I was like, oh shit. I saw your hat. I'm a wrestler too. I was looking into, coming there to train and maybe work. And we talked for a minute or two. He was super chill and then ran it, of course, a couple months later, there he is at the school. It was funny though. Another person who got signed, another person who made it big is he was hanging out with Layla. They were both there. And then she goes, then I meet her at CCW, and he didn't lie because he said she would work the shit out of anyone, and she did. That girl is tougher than just about any locker room I'll walk into. Now she works for AW. Now she works for NWA, and like nothing but good things to say about her. Hardest working person I've probably ever met. But my story is 2016. I've been wrestling in Jersey maybe a year, if that. There's a company called OTW, which is actually out of where H2O runs now. Out towards Delaware. It's still technically Jersey, but it's really close to the border. OTW is running a all battle royal show, and the winner of each battle royal got a shot at a different championship. So I'm on this show because I knew a guy who knew a guy, got me on it. I want to say it was probably Adam Chandler, who just retired from UWC last show. An awesome dude. Adam's super freaking talented, super like athletic, great dude. But like he got me on the show. He got me and Nate Mustang. So we both show up. We both do a couple battle royals, and that was the show. But between battle royals, we were all hanging out in the back, and I met this dude named Beefcake. And Beefcake is this 6'6", 6'7", big old burly looking dude. Looks like just this giant angry ginger, and he was super cool, fucking chill as hell, and was talking all like telling funny stories in the back, making everyone laugh. Fast forward, working CZW. I'm not even working CZW. I'm just there for training one night. And this giant, scary looking dude with this weird red mohawk walks in. And it's Boulder from Bear Country. And he looks over and he sees me and goes, "Oh shit, you're the guy from OTW with the DBZ shirt." I was like, I know you're from Bear Country, but like, why is this not clicking? I go, "Beefcake?" And he's like, "Bro," he recognized me from like 5 years ago. Comes, gives me this giant hug. He's like, "It's good to see you, bro." And now him and fucking Bronson are signed to AEW. So like, and he did the same thing a year ago. I saw him at a show in like October, November of last year. He was just doing an appearance, and he saw him. He's like, "Hey, bro, what's up?" And him and Bronson were both there as Bear Country, and they're like, "Bro, it's good to see you again." Like, recognized me from all that time, and just it was so awesome. And I can't say enough good things about those two, and I hope nothing but the best for them.
Like, bro, the way you're speaking of them is how I feel when I meet these rock stars that are so gracious to me. These rappers, like I just talked to ODB's son, Young Dirty Bastard. Wonderful dude, very gracious, and that goes a long way in our industry. But wrestling's so tight knit. You know, even Kevin. You remember Kevin?
Of course, I know Kevin.
Kevin was talking, he was chopping it up with AR Fox. Back to that same night I told you about.
Yeah,
KC Navarro
yeah,
was part of that Final Four. AR Fox was part of that Final Four.
yeah.
But that, like, Kevin's like, "Oh shit, what up, AR?" He's like, "Oh, what's up? Oh, good to see you." I'm like, why do these dudes know each other? I was confused. I didn't know Kevin's was like that at the time.
Yeah.
But it's so beautiful. When I think of injuries, because I remember you had an injury that was plaguing you for the longest time, and
Mhm.
back to you wrestling people. When I say we have videos of this dude just wrestling on boards. Okay, the ring is. I don't even think it was boards. I think they put metal sheets on top of metal because when you hit the ground, when you hit the mat, it was like
Ugh.
it was stiff. It wasn't no give. So for me, I think the worst industry, luckily, God's grace, the worst injury I ever received was my first running bump because I
Mhm.
didn't know you're supposed to stop and then drop. There's like a little delay. I just went full force, like, all right, feet from under me, boom, hit my head, whiplash, and Joey
Yep.
Casey's looking at me like, "You okay?" I was like, "Yeah." Brain rattled and shit. He's like, he saw it too. He's like, "Next time, just stop.
Yep.
You'll be fine." So when you were wrestling full time before that injury, what happened? What were you
Ugh.
thinking? And how long was your rehab? Because now you're back at it. You're the world champion at your
Yep.
promotion. So walk me
Uh,
through that.
I just dropped the belt last month. Well, last month, two weeks ago, to a guy that I probably respect more than anyone in this business. I lost the belt to Tony Cheney. He is now the undisputed UWC champion because he's both the heavyweight and the United States champion.
Boo. We want Kirby.
Uh,
We want Kirby.
well, when heel Kirby comes out and says, "Put up or shut up, bitch. Put it on the line, or I'm not putting mine on," and you lose, well, I mean, now honestly, without going into too much background stuff, like I love Tony to death. If I could have dropped it to anyone, it would have been him. So I'm glad that that's who it was. And rewind to what I said earlier. The crowd lost their shit when he pinned me. You heard it. You heard that pin for like a second. 1, 2, real quiet. 3, like they lost their minds. So like good for him, happy for him. But that rematch, I'm taking that thing back. That title belongs to me. But the injury, oh my god. So the injury was like the most ill-timed thing ever. It could not have been worse because what it was Nate Mustang versus Mr. Spectrum, UWC title on the line. Lost Boy Kirby as the special guest ref. And those who don't know, I was Lost Boy Kirby. Lost Boy Kirby used to be both of their tag team partners. We were all three part of the Sons of Liberty at one time. But Spectrum turned heel. I turned in from J Kirby into Lost Boy Kirby, and then Nate came back challenging for the title. So Nate's wrestling, and we're doing the goofy shtick where, you know, I'm biased to Nate, you know, I'm fast counting, or he's outside the ring and I go 1, oh 2, you know, like the whole goofy shtick where I'm super biased to him. And there's a point in the match where I hit Spectrum and Nate's like, no, I don't, not like this. I'm not going to win that way. So Nate picks him up for the F5, and I clock Nate and I put Spectrum on top of him and I count the 3. And everyone's like, oh, what just happened? And I'm sitting there going, oh, what did I just do? And what was supposed to happen, I'm going to give a little bit of backstage. What's supposed to happen is Nate sells from the shot and I hit him with the curb stomp and I turn heel. What actually happens is Nate calls for me to hit him with my rolling elbow, which was my signature, which I 1000% stole from Chris Hero. If he wants me to stop doing it, please message me, just because I'd love to hear from you. But no, I started using the Chris Hero elbow. It's been one of my signatures for the longest time. Never had an issue with it. Never had a problem with it. Got over whenever I could hit it. But this night, I go to hit it. I step and I go pow, catch him with the elbow, and I feel my knee pop. And I had felt my knee pop before, back when I played football, and that was when I pulled my ACL, like I strained it. So I hit him with the elbow, and I feel that pop, and I fall over. And I'm like, this is not good. This is not good. Okay, I'm going to stand up. I'm going to power through this. We'll get through the segment, and I'll get to the back. I stand up again, pop again, and I fall. And I literally fall, because the first time I stumble, then I fell straight over, and I'm on the mat holding the knee. My brain is going, oh no, this segment's ruined, because it was supposed to be this big, shocking, oh my, Marty just kicked, or Sean just kicked Marty kind of moment. So I'm laying on the ground, I'm throwing the X to the booker, and I'm like, help me. This is not me selling. Because even the guys in the back were they thought I was just selling from the match. And I was like, help me. So they come over, they're hold me up. And Joe's like, can you cut a promo? And I was like, yeah, I have to. Because my brain is thinking I have to salvage this. Because if it's a pull, because at the time, I didn't think it was serious. I thought it was strained. Okay, I'm going to take a month off and I'll be fine in a few weeks. But right now, I can't do anything. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, I'll save this segment. And I'm limping. And it's still today is one of my favorite promos that I've cut. I am dying in pain. This hurts. And I'm like, ladies and gentlemen, I think I've injured my knee carrying this team for 2 years. Boo! Oh, and I lay into Nate, and I was like, I am Lost Boy Kirby. You'll respect me, and I will be the because I'd been on, because I won the U.S. title as Lost Boy Kirby, and the month before I challenged for the heavyweight title, and so the whole point building to me in that match was the Triple Crown. And every promo, I was like, I will be the Triple Crown champion. Everyone's like, he's going to be the Triple Crown champion. Then I turned heel and I was like, no one is going to stop me from taking my destiny as Triple Crown champion. And boo, boo. It was bad. So the crazy part is the injury starts to get a little bit better. So I go to the doctor literally the next day, and they're like, okay, it's probably a strain. 2 to 3 weeks. Come back. If it's worse, then we'll go farther. Get scans and whatnot. If it's better, take it a little. Keep taking it easy, and you'll be fine. Which I think when I strained my ACL in football, I was out for 3 or 4 games. So the
What's the
math.
turnaround rate for a football season in high school? How many?
1 game a week.
Okay.
But I was also playing JV, so I was technically playing twice a week. But practice was Monday through Thursday, and I couldn't do anything. I was out there in shorts and a t-shirt while everyone else was in pads. It was like a weird tackle incident where we were doing a tackling drill and it popped when I was running the ball and fell over, and it did not feel it. It was almost just like the match. Like I felt it pop, and I'm going, okay, I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna tough this out, and I'll be fine. Get up again. Nope, I'm not toughing this out. I'm gonna lay here for a minute. So I go. So back to the wrestling one, feeling the same thing, feeling the same kind of, pains and tings and whatnot. So about 2.5, almost 3 weeks go by. I'm supposed to go back to them on Monday. It's Sunday morning. I literally stand up out of bed. I'm like, okay, we're feeling better, feeling better. Stand all the way up, click, and just searing pain all down my leg. And I fall over, and I'm just like, and it was bad. It hurt. It hurt like a son of a bitch. I go to the doc the next day. I was like, it was almost better. It felt awful. They're like, okay, we're gonna do scans. It's like, okay. So I go in, I get the scan. Funny enough, if you've never gotten I think I think I got a CAT scan on my knee. I fell asleep. And this is just the funny story behind it. I fell asleep during the scan, and I wake up to, please try not to move. Fucking hell. I guess I fell asleep and was trying to adjust myself. I was like, okay, I'm awake now. About a week goes by. I'm at work, and I get a call, and it's from medical. And medical's like, so we got your scans back, and we're looking at your recovery time and the possibility of surgery. And I was like, whoa, 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 back up, back up, back
Oh,
up.
they didn't tell you nothing.
They
Damn.
had they were looking at it. They're like, yeah, it's most likely a tear, and you're probably going to require surgery. I'm just like, no, 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 no. I can't have surgery. Surgery's bad. So then I go to the doc. Now, the funny part about this story, and there's not many, is how do I explain to someone who does not understand professional wrestling? Because I figured if I have to have surgery, they're going to tell me how long until I can go back to work. How do I explain to them what pro wrestling is and what kind of turnaround time? Because I wanted to get back into it. I loved it. Because I know that work's going to be there, and work's going to have me still doing my job in a wheelchair if they could. Whereas, wrestling, you can't really do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, all right, how do I explain to this doctor that I'm a wrestler and that it's not completely full contact, but it's still technically strenuous? Like, how do I do this thing? And ironically enough, I was wearing one of my old CZW shirts. And the doc walks in and he goes, "Oh, you're a wrestling fan?" And I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh, I was at Mania down in Tampa a couple years ago." I was like, "Oh, thank God." And he goes, "You're a wrestler?" And I was like, "Yeah, I got hurt wrestling." He goes, I know exactly what you're thinking. 6 to 9 months. And I was like, thank God. Thank God I don't have to explain this to somebody. He knew exactly where my head was. He knew exactly what I needed to hear. He said 6 to 9 months.
And he was understanding of your fear. That's a big thing. A lot of doctors don't get.
Oh yeah.
They a lot of them are just pretty like this takes precedence over whatever's happening for you. But there's some doctors,
Oh,
sports
so
medicine, they'll cater to your fear.
shout out to him because he's been on the Kirbside show, and I've talked to him since. Dr. Sean McMillan, dude is a whiz at freaking surgery. He's done mine. Ironically enough, I think freaking TRICARE is going to put this man's kids through college because he's done my knee surgery, my buddy's knee surgery, and our boss's knee surgery. And I'm just like, this man's just going to make all the money fucking fixing idiots' knees. So he does the knee surgery. I was very nervous going into the knee surgery, but it was funny because when I want to say like 2017, I had no surgery. I had a really deviated septum. I couldn't breathe super good when I slept. So I went in, got it fixed. And no issues, just they fixed up my nose and I was fine. Uh so then it's knee surgery time, and I told him, I was like, listen, I'm nervous about this. This scares me because my dad, when I was in high school, had knee surgery and it got botched, and he he lost a certain percentage of mobility he'll never get back. He still has like blood pressure issues from the surgery. Like, it was bad. So I'm scared this is going to happen to me. And what happens with the job when knee surgery goes bad and I can't run to do PT, or I can't walk up and down a plane to fix it because I can't walk, you know? So I'm nervous. And I joked with him. I was like, listen, if they botched my nose surgery, oh no, I'm ugly. If this goes wrong, it's kind of more serious. He's like, listen, you'll be fine. This is the only thing I'm good at in life.
Egg, eggs, that's a
And
different way to put it.
right, only thing I'm good at. You'll be fine. And I woke up. It felt like Wolverine had stabbed my kneecap. Like, it hurt, but it was fixed. He said the surgery went great, no issues, no complications, and started physical therapy about a month later. And here I am 2 years later. 2 years later. Weirdly enough, and I'm not gonna try to jump on a soapbox here, but it really is kind of something that I'm passionate about. Is during that time, I had a lot of mental health issues because it was during COVID. I got my knee surgery. I started my recovery. I got about 30 days like convalescent time off work. Literally like 2 weeks after I'm about to go to work, like I'm going to work, limping, but I'm going to work. 2 weeks later, the world shuts down. So I went from 30 days of not being able to go anywhere, do anything, to almost 6 months of not being able to go anywhere, do anything. And that drove me stir crazy. And like, not to sound like a sales pitch when I say this, thank God for the podcast, because I was literally sitting in my house. Military said you can't go here, here, or here, which was basically everywhere. Can't go to the gym. You can't be out in public. If you're going to go out to get food, you have to like pick it up and go home. There's no eating out anymore. So I'm like, what am I going to do? I can't. The only good side to it was the fact that shows weren't running because no one could run. So my recovery process was during a downtime, which is good, because if it hadn't been, I think I would have lost my mind. But like, stress, anxiety, literal stir craze was starting to affect, excuse me, was really starting to affect me and really starting to egg me on in the back of my head. Like, when can I go back to living my life? And it really messed with me. And thank goodness for friends, for support, for the doctor I talked to for mental health awareness. Like, I can't preach that enough for people who are gonna listen and watch this later. Is like, if you are having some weird, and I don't want to say weird because, to each is their own, but if you're having like strange, out of whack thoughts, talk to somebody. It can be family, it can be a friend, it can be a pastor, a minister, a doctor. Like, get help when you can. If you need help, never feel bad about getting it, because like I have struggled with anxiety, ADHD, depression, like especially during COVID. Depression was awful. So I'll get off my soapbox, I promise, Ninja, but like, if you're out there and you're having those issues, go talk to anyone, because you're not alone in this. There's someone out there who will listen. And there's someone out there who does have answers for you. But like, with me, luckily, I had Kirbside to keep me busy. I had friends to talk to, so, and that's kind of where the rest of the story goes. Eventually, the world picked back up. I got the all clear to start wrestling again. Um, and during the downtime is when I had started the Kirbside podcast. Guest.
And we're gonna hop into that, but I do want to keep on that subject. It's a very important subject because you're really the first person that's really had a negative experience that I've interviewed
Mhm.
on the podcast. Like everybody had their situations, I'm stuck in the house, etc. But you really went through the ringer. When I have downtime, my friends just have a second sense about me. They'll just call me. It's like, "Hey man, what you up to?" And then all of a sudden it's like, "Well, what?" It's like they know when there's an issue for me.
Mhm.
I'm that guy. It's like, okay, you know what? Unless it's really bad and I need to consult with like mom or a friend, like, hey, I have to make a really important decision. If something's
Mhm.
bothering me, I just kind of let it go. My muse is music, so I'm just gonna play the guitar, let whatever is bothering me out, and then
Mhm.
keep it pushing. So, who was really, really pivotal in doing something like that for you? Who was that one person that, even though you're talking to dog, even though you're talking to mom or dad or your friends, there's always that one person like you hear from them and it gives you that little bit more inspiration. It just automatically calms your soul even if you don't
Mhm.
talk about the subject.
So I had two. I had my uh well, now she's my ex, but my current girl, she was my girlfriend at the time, and co-host for the show. She and that w- she both helped and hindered, but it wasn't her fault. See, what it was is she lived very far away, and military was very strict on travel. So like, I'm sitting here, you know, alone. I want to see her. She wants to see me, but we physically cannot see one another. And it was hard. But, we message each other, we talk to each other all the time about how we felt, and was very, very open and honest with one another about our struggles. But uh her name is Britt. Uh Regardless of how things ended, I still think the world of her. She's awesome. She's such a fun person. So like, she was definitely there for as much as she could be, being at a distance. The other person was also long distance, but it was my best friend. Um so I have two best friends in this world, and they're basically the closest thing to older brothers that I have. So if you ever hear me talk on an interview or just in person, I say my brother, I'm talking about one of these two, and it's Bo and Tim. Specifically, it was Tim. Nothing against Bo. I still love him to death, the lovable asshole. Also, anyone who's listening, if you want Bo's personality, it's just Dean Winchester in real life. Like, that's Bo. I can't watch seasons 1 through 3 of Supernatural without just going, God damn it, Bo. Every episode. Tim is a little different. So Bo and Tim are best friends. I was friends with Bo, and so I met Tim, and then it just became the three of us. And they adopted me as their little brother. And so at the time, Tim wasn't working because he had one of those office moments or office space moments. He just wakes up one day and goes, I really hate this place. Bye. He did it professionally, but he packed his shit and took his ball and went home. And granted, he had enough money saved up and, just had time on his hands to just unwind and decompress from a lot of issues he was having too. So I was sitting at home doing a whole lot of nothing. He was sitting at home doing a whole lot of nothing. And so we would hop on Xbox and we'd either game or we started of all things, we started a WCW marathon. We hopped on that old network, found some old episodes of Nitro, and what we would do is, and we still do it because we're still at it today, is we would find the same video, the same pay-per-view or the same TV show. We go, okay, I'm at 0 seconds. Are you? All right, I'm at 0 seconds. 3, 2, 1, play. And we'd both hit play at the same time. So we'd basically be watching the same thing at the same time. And that helped a lot. Just all of this downtime doing nothing, wondering when things are going back. And my brother's sitting here distracting me watching some old school wrestling. And then I got to, study a bunch of old school wrestling because I had a lot of time on my hands.
That also helped with your wrestling. It's weird for me because I look back at the height of the pandemic. That was the busiest I ever was in my life. That's the worst I've ever seen people dealing with people. Because at the time I was still working at the gas station. I'm pharmacy tech now too, trying to do a bunch of other stuff. And granted, it did wonders for my own channel. I got some really good interviews out of it, but it hasn't really subsided for me. It's a little slower now, but just hearing the stories of people going back and forth. The only thing I'll remember as far as the friendships go is I kind of tried to make peace with everyone at the beginning of it. I didn't know, you didn't know what was going to happen, but I had so many good friends, I just remember at that point, like it was probably when they went into lockdown for good. It's like, it's on now. I just remember I hung out with all my friends, childhood friends for one get together, got to say what's up to all my friends from college, try to make amends with the females in my life, you know what I'm saying? And then after that, I was kind of like, okay, where from, hold on. This is why I like it on the computer. It's like, where from now? So it's weird to hear, people with really, really positive stories like, man, that was like the best time. I didn't do nothing. And then you hear all these other stories. It's like, it was really, really trying times. We lost a friend. Speaking of mental illness, we lost a friend during COVID. And
Yeah.
I just, two people passed away during that time for me. One was a friend from college, loved, absolutely loved by the university. And, people today, I think the family kept it on the DL because I'm running into people we were all close with today, and they didn't know. They didn't know he took his own life and he was really depressed and all this. And it's weird because it's like you can see it, but you're also like, he was, yeah, like, damn, we used to talk about getting girls or doing this and that, and you have this hope, like, oh God, let him. Me being the jackass I am, I'm like, let him have gotten lead, let him have gotten to do the stuff we used to talk about, let him,
Right.
And then the other one was a pharmacist I work with, rest in peace too, Emily. Just a car accident, all the bullshit, all the yelling, the back and forth with customers, all things slowing down, finally getting to the light of the tunnel, and then it's weird. It really is. It was a trying time. Not the first time in human history, but it was a little weird for us to have experienced that. on a more positive note, let's get back to your podcast, which we gave you because you guys are running. You guys
Yes.
got show appearances. I should
Yes.
probably ask how you
So
doing at these conventions. So walk me through, because I think the biggest issue nowadays is actually getting a group that is committed to doing it. And you guys are that group
yeah.
for you. So walk me through the start and where you're at now, why you're still happy. Because you were doing these interviews with more famous celebs way before,
Ah,
you know.
well, okay. Don't inflate my ego too much. So how the podcast started is actually started off really simple. Start with a small idea that I had. And I don't know if I've done it as best I could, but I hope I can really grasp that ring somewhere down the line. So my friend, this guy, there's not a bad thing to say about him. I helped train him. He is also a wrestler down in Virginia. He is amazing. His name is Ben Banks. Look him up. The man runs Leveling Up with Ben Banks. It's a nerd podcast. They cover basically everything that Kirbside does: anime, video games, movies, any kind of pop culture you can think of. This man is got his fingers in. And like I said, Banks is amazing. Just a wonderful person. He's a pretty good wrestler, but he's just so like he's got so much energy and so much life in him. So like I respect the hell out of Banks. So a couple years ago, Banks has me on his show. He was talking about Star Wars. And if you can't figure out by this interview or the Lego sets behind me, I love Star Wars to death. And so he brought me on because we're bros, we're pals, to talk about Star Wars one day. And I was like, yeah, and we did this interview and it was a blast and I had a great time. And I sat there thinking, this would be something fun to do, do little interviews. And at that time I was on GTS really frequently. And I had about 8,000 followers on Twitter. And I was like, that's a big following. That's a lot of people. And I'm not going to get into, bots or fake accounts or whatever the hell. But like, that's a lot of people. Even if I grab a percentage of that, I could do some good with it. So my goal was I wanted to do a podcast where I talk about things I'm passionate about, but I wanted to bring on people who don't have followings and try to give them some of mine so that people can see them. So like if I was going to do a topic on anime, I was going to bring on my brother Tim because he's a voice actor and he's trying to get noticed by, like animation companies. It's like I wanted to bring him on. If someone had like an acting project, I wanted to get them on to talk about their stuff. And I've tried and I've had we'll call it mixed successes on, what has and hasn't gotten people's attention. And so that's how it started. It started with the idea. And I'm not going to lie to you, the first couple episodes are rough to get through because like I am working, like I said, with an iPhone, the little ear jacks and a microphone that I had to talk like this into. And it was like the quality was awful. Because we're on Zoom, I'll say this: fuck Skype. Nothing but trouble trying to do interviews with Skype and trying to save the files. Eventually started getting the hang of Zoom, or I started using Zoom, started getting the hang of it. But that's where the idea started. And then just from then, I've tried to find things that interest me that I think other people would enjoy and like to talk about. So like one of my favorite interviews, and I'll praise this interview, not so much because I did a good job, but like just because she's a wonderful person, is I got to interview a nice lady. Her name is Shanna Stoker. Shanna is wonderful. She is a bubbly, just lovely human. But Shanna is the great, 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 great grandniece of Bram Stoker. And anyone who doesn't know who that is, he wrote Dracula. And I found her on TikTok. She was making a video about herself and about her boutique. It's called the Ghoulish Garb. It's like it's really gothic, like kind of horror and gothic based apparel. And I was like, she has to have an interesting story. And so I messaged her. She said yes, and we did an amazing interview. Had an absolute blast. Um, she was probably one of my favorite interviews. One of the biggest interviews I had is I got to interview because now she's signed. She wasn't signed at the time, but I got to interview Lady Frost and her husband Savage Gentleman, because they were just an interesting team that I wanted to talk to. They were a married couple that were a tag team. I was like, this is something fun and awesome that I'd love to hear about. And now Lady Frost works for Impact Wrestling and can be seen weekly, and it's so cool to see them succeed. And even got to run into them a couple months ago when Impact was in Philly. So like right now I'm just trying to do interviews that I think people will enjoy and really gravitate to. Um, little fun announcement. I heard back from a band that I'm trying to interview. They said they're interested. They'd like to. It's just whether or not their schedules can all align. I'll be interviewing Poor Man's Poison. Man's Poison.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're a folk slash gothic country band, and a lot of people recognize them because their song "Hell's Coming" has been used on TikTok for a bunch of videos, especially in the D&D community. Which, if you don't mind, I'll get on that soapbox here in 2 seconds. Um, but like, they literally, what's today? Monday? I think Saturday night they emailed me. No, Friday night. Friday night they emailed me. Said, "Hey, yeah, we'd love to do an interview. Let us, get with us." Um it's just there's four of them, so their schedules have to align. And I was like, "Take your time, just please, keep me in the loop. I'd love to. This is going to be awesome." Um so one of the cool things about the podcast is there's Kirbside Podcast, which is the main show where I do interviews. Um, Unfortunately, because me and Britt separated, she's no longer on the show. It's nothing personal, just it would just be really strange and awkward the two of us still doing this together when we're headed separate ways in life. And like I said earlier, there's no hard feelings like at all. I don't have anything bad to say about her, neither does anyone on the other show.
But you still retain the rights.
Yeah, it she said keep doing the show, keep doing what I want to do, and she hopes that it's successful, and I appreciated her for that. um so now instead of the two of us doing interviews, it's just me. Sorry everyone that the ugly co-host is still on the show. But now it's just me doing the interviews. And so the other show we have, which I love to talk about, is called Dice Hard with a Vengeance. And I know that sounds like the most punniest name you could ever think of, and it is. It is our D&D spinoff show. So basically what we do is for Dice Hard with a Vengeance, we stream every Tuesday. Twitch and YouTube Live. We used to do Facebook, but Facebook's been kind of a pain lately when it comes to audio and copyright issues, which is bull. But not
Bullshit.
into that long soapbox argument. I'm just gonna say that I won't be posting. I won't be doing live videos on Facebook. I'll just be posting the YouTube links. We're also on Spotify. That was a cool little achievement for me, is getting the show onto Spotify. But we're on Twitch and YouTube Live every Tuesday. We play D&D, and it started off as something small, and it has kind of gotten a life of its own. So what it was is during COVID, um, the guy Tim, aka Manabo, for any of the wrestling fans out there from GTS, he reached out to me and he knew I was a D&D player. He's like, hey, me and my buddy, we want to play D&D. And we're going to do it over Zoom because we can't all meet up anywhere. And I was like, yeah, I'd love to join in. So then while we're building this game and we're starting to get people interested, I was like, hey, would you mind if we recorded it and then I can post it on YouTube and have like, because the YouTube page was very barren at the time. And I only had like a handful of interviews, maybe 10 or 12 at the most. I was like, can I use this as content for the show? And he's like, yeah. And so I started recording and I started doing the editing. And we just passed 2 years and it has been amazing. My brother Tim is the DM. He's the narrator, the world creator, the person who runs this motley crew of idiots. But he is, because he wrote and created the world himself. He didn't use a book. He didn't use they're called modules in D&D, which is like pre-made adventures. He has written everything on his own, and the story we have gotten ourselves into has been amazing and mind-blowing, and twists and turns like every single week. It's been insane. So that is our spiel, Kirbside Podcast, and then Kirbside presents Dice Hard with a Vengeance.
Man, I gotta go back because when you did that interview with the rep, it was fun to watch because you have this personality, and it's hard to, because I know we throw around these words, these loving guys, these nice guys, these guys that'll take care of you, they're so charismatic. It's hard to put on words how hard it is to find somebody that's comfortable with you. I think that's what it is. And I think the thing I always appreciated was, like, ladies and gentlemen, the man invited me to his home with a bunch of strangers. I was the stranger. All these other cats were military heads. People like, dude started bleeding on the pizza. He's like, oh, my bad. Started eating the pizza while there's blood. I'm like, damn, I got to figure out if I can eat this pizza now. Can you consume blood and not catch anything? But, you know, it was very like humbling. Here's a cat. Hey, come to my home, hang out with my closest friends. We have so much in common, our loves. We both got our man, I got my morpher. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do this after. But to be genuine about how kind and courageous you are with people, it's very something awing. You have a sensibility, ability to make people feel at ease to speak with you, and I always admired that. That's also part of like why I see you guys succeeding so well, just being comfortable speaking, because I didn't know a lot of people have that issue. So
Oh,
family,
bro, don't get it twisted. I am not a good speaker. Like
I'm
I
twisted.
had
I'm
I
twisted,
had
man. I'm twisted.
well, it's gotten better since I started wrestling. I have the worst stage fright, and like I've had so many just like anxiety attacks like right before I hit the send button for a Zoom interview with like someone, like pretty proper, Lady Frost and Savage Gentleman. When I interviewed them, I was pacing, going, okay, I can do this. Okay, I can do this. Click. And then it was, there we were. But like whew, I appreciate your very kind words, but it's not always easy to talk to someone who you've never met before.
Agreed. I get that. See, walk me through this idea of before I ask that final question. Walk me through this idea of stage fright, because I know exactly what you're talking about. So before an interview, this is for everyone else. Before the interview, I print out the questions. I make sure I go over the intro, because an intro is very hard. If you strike that off, great. That's a good start. That makes them feel a little better that you did your homework. But there is that fear. How's it gonna go? Am I gonna be good? Is it gonna do them justice? I've had times I was like, this is fucking trash, and the person was so charismatic and great. It was like, that's one of the best chats of my life. And then other times it's like, oh, this is gonna kill, and then you do it and it's like, wow, that was complete shit. I feel so terrible now. But it's like the seance I do is I start playing "Ain't No Fun Waiting to Be a Millionaire" by AC/DC. You know, I grab my guitar. If everything else is set, I got my drinks, I got my lights ready. I just play that song until I see that button pop up, you know, and then
Mhm.
after, you know, button pops up, okay, it's go time, put the guitar down, click it immediately, and it's like that fear dissipates. And
Mhm.
it's like when the music hits for a wrestling show, you become the character. I
Oh
click
yeah.
it. Hey, how you doing? You know, thank you for your time. Go over the same thing we went over. You know, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Okay, let's do it. Ladies and gentlemen, it's John Ninja, motherfuckers. You know, you just I feel that adrenaline. You know, I always
Mhm.
say don't mistake fear for adrenaline. And you know, but as soon as it's on, as soon as that button's clicked, it's like it's go time. There's that fear could still be there, but I don't notice it. I'm on a mission. But that's not what I've been necessarily told by other people. You know, that fear, that crippling frightenness is still there while they're doing it.
Mhm.
So could you walk me through what I'm not, and I'm not bragging. I feel
No, I got you. I got you. So my biggest worry, especially because when I was younger, when I was in high school, I loved theater, and I still love theater. I just don't have the freaking time to do it anymore because I'm in the middle of wrestling, podcasting, and working. I unfortunately theater doesn't get as much time as it deserves, but I loved theater, and I have a lot of really fun acting friends. So my biggest fear was if I ever did the acting section for a show, for a musical, for a play, whatever, is that I was gonna get on stage, be really excited that I'm on stage, and then realize how many people I'm in front of and forget everything and forget a line and forget, and then everything's going to go horribly wrong. When it comes to wrestling and when it comes to podcasting, and not so much with D&D, because that's just us being a bunch of goofballs together, just a bunch of friends hanging out. But like when it comes to me doing an interview or me having to go out for a match, or especially having to go out for a promo, um I my anxiety will ask me the worst, it'll play the worst case scenario in my head, like, hey, you want to interview this band, what if they don't like you? Well, then I'll try to get through it. Well, what if they don't have any answers to your questions? Well, then you have to, it's hard. It's really hard. And it's taken a lot of practice and a lot of help. But you have to like filter through those thoughts and think of what the reality is. And my brother Bo, he always tells me, they're just people. Well, sometimes they're not. They're not just people. Sometimes you feel like they're bigger than that. So like, and I've met celebrities, and it's always just made me nervous. And I've always like, what if I say something dumb? What if I do something stupid? What if I mess up this match and it doesn't go over right and the crowd hates it and starts booing me? So like those kind of thoughts are what play in my head. And it's not that they ever go away, but there's times where like, oh, almost like if I look at it like a diving board where you're worried to jump and you're worried about is the water going to be cold, am I going to be able to swim, am I going to come up for air, and then eventually you just got to go, okay, we're jumping, and you go. And that's that's how I think of it in my head, is eventually I just go, okay, it's go time, it's show time, let the lights on, push through it. And sometimes it doesn't always go smoothly. I've messed up an interview intro here and there. I've messed up in matches, but that adrenaline rush, when like when you go through the curtain, adrenaline rush, you go from we'll call it prep mode of, okay, I need to be sure to do this and do that and make sure I do this, and then it's go time. There's no more writing down the list. Uh there's no more thinking. It's the doing part. So like when I'm doing an interview, I'll get super nervous when I'm sending the person the link to the Zoom. I'll be a nervous wreck. And then when they're here, when they're on the screen, okay, here we go. And generally a lot of times that anxiety will dissipate depending on the person, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Once we're there. So like I interviewed this guy, awesome dude. His name's Roosevelt. He is on TikTok and he's a really big following, and he does this show called That Shouldn't Work. And what it is he describes famous movies with only D&D terms, and people have to guess what he's talking about. And he's so charismatic and he's so much fun. And I messaged him, see if he wanted to do an interview. He said yes. So I got super nervous that like, okay, I gotta make sure that I do this right and that I don't mess this up. And by the time that we were here, before I'd even hit record, we had like a 25-minute conversation of just everything and how just wonderful he was to talk to, and how similar we were. And the interview went great, went super smooth. He was a pleasure to talk to. He was hilarious. So like a lot of times the reality isn't as bad as what my anxiety says it'll be, but it's that initial push through. It's that initial curtain burst that you have to get over. And I always remember the advice that a guy gave me my first night of wrestling. His name is Shorty Smalls. He was not short, nor was he small. And he told me, because I looked like a wreck. I was pale as a ghost. I was third on the card, and it was like match 2, and I was like, and he's like, "You nervous, kid?" Uh-huh. Good. If you're ever not nervous, then stop doing this.
Mm.
Because his point of view was, if I'm ever not nervous going into a match, if I'm ever not nervous, my light died. If I'm ever not nervous going into a match, I'm going in overconfident and something could get messed up or someone could get hurt. If I'm ever not nervous going into something, I'm not going to be focused on what I need to do. And so when he said, and granted, crippling anxiety is different from being just like passively nervous.
Yeah, having the butterflies.
Butterflies will keep you, they'll keep you, not aware. They'll keep you alert. They'll keep you ready. They'll keep you on your toes, and you'll be ready to adapt, overcome, or go with the flow of whatever's happening. I told a kid at GTS that the other day because he wrestled Big Vin in a match, and you might remember him. His name is Isaac Scythe. He was a little kid that Joe Gacy helped train when we were at CZW. He is wrestling at GTS, but Isaac was wrestling Big Vin, and Isaac's nervous because he's still a kid and he hasn't been doing this very long. I was like, "You nervous, Isaac?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm really nervous." I was like, "Good. That's going to keep you on your toes. It's going to keep you alert. Vin's going to take, yeah, Vin's going to keep, he's going to take care of you. You're going to be fine. Don't ever go into this overconfident because that's how you mess up and that's how you get hurt. So keep those butterflies, keep that nerve. Just don't let it, don't let it get to the crippling level."
And that's interesting, man, because now I'm looking back, it's like that fear of sending that email, yes, 100%. Not getting that response back. I think the biggest buildup is if I get it or not. There's so many emails. I just emailed William Shatner today, his crew, and they said he's not available for this new book he's doing for the press tour. Or Jeanette McCurdy. I really would love to talk to her before the book even blew up. And now it's like even bigger than it was for the pre-sale.
Right.
That anxiety of like, am I gonna get this? Am I gonna get this? Am I gonna get this? Fortunately for me, God's been really good. I'm a bad Christian, but Jesus has been good to me. But that I sympathize, that leads me down to understand it a little bit more, because like I said, you know, when the spotlight is on, it's just automatic, man. I don't know what it
Mhm.
is. It's just you go for it, just divide and conquer. Like, I've had times where I've effed up and I knew it, but I didn't let it show until after the fact. And then I had
Mhm.
to apologize to the person. I am so sorry I fucked that up. But
Crazy is most of the time they'll be like, "Oh, I didn't even notice. You're good."
you ever have that happen where you felt like you had a really
Oh
long
yeah,
pause and then you go back, it's like, oh, that was like
yeah, all the
yeah,
time.
crazy. But family, I gotta ask you the most important question. I know
Yeah,
you're on
brother.
a busy schedule, but what is the most important, or I would say the wisest advice someone's ever given to you? It can't be your own, it can't be something you devise. Somebody said it, just like homie said, if you're not nervous, you're gonna get hurt. What's the best piece of advice someone's bestowed on you? Or it could be funny, could be serious, it could be bullshit, but it struck a chord, it's stuck. Kind of like Jimmy Rave saying what he said, kind of like the last guy saying what he said. What's something somebody said that it's kind of always a guiding light in life?
Um, well, now you put me on the spot. Um, this isn't the answer, but I always like the never take life too serious. You'll never make it out alive, because it's true. A lot of people go through life, and it's not more or less the worried about you know where their next meal or where their next job's going to be, but it's people who are stressed about little things that aren't going to matter in a day, aren't going to matter in a year, aren't going to matter in a decade. And sometimes you just got to kind of go for it, and you can't take things like great example. You can't take rivalries or beef with people or heat in the backstage super serious, because like one day you're here and the next day you're not. And whether or not you disagree with someone in the back isn't going to matter to you in 2 or 3 years, because either that person may or may not be wrestling still, they may or not be bigger or smaller. Like sometimes, unfortunately, they might not even be around. Like sometimes people take little things way too serious and blow things way out of proportion. Um, so like that's advice I've always lived with. And it's a funny movie quote. I think it's oh no, I remember the movie and I can't remember what it's called now. Um, yeah, it's never take life too serious. You'll never make it out alive. Um, as far as like something I would say to a person, advice wise, now you always need to weigh your options, factors, decision factors, and whatnot. But if you want something in life, I say go for it. If you really, really want something that you said, I've always wanted to do this or I've always wanted to do that, then just go for it. Like, and I don't think I got to tell this story. Like when I became a wrestler, my parents straight up told me, my dad told me, you're an adult, make your own decisions. He was either way with it. Mom says that is stupid and a waste of your time. And guess who wants to come watch me wrestle the next time I'm in town? And guess who goes, wow, you're actually really good at this, and showed up to a live show that I was at before. Like it's very I don't want it's not inspiring. It's mind blowing to see how things can change. If whether that's a hater becoming a supporter, or whether that's people who you didn't expect to support you just coming out of the woodwork being like, "Yeah, man, you've got this. I didn't know you felt that way about me, but okay, I appreciate I appreciate that." No, so if you really, really want something in life and you want to now granted, I won't ever do it, but if you want to go skydiving, or if you want to be a wrestler, if you want to start a podcast, go for it. And there's always going to be a learning process. You're never here's good advice. This advice I learned from Bob Evans. Brutal Bob Evans, not the franchise, the physical person. He's a wrestling trainer. He's worked for Ring of Honor, Monster Factory. Great dude. He said, your first whatever is going to suck. Your first match is going to suck. Your first interview is going to suck. Your first song is going to suck. That doesn't mean it always will. Everything starts off somewhere. You don't start as the best. You don't wake up, not everyone wakes up every morning and pisses excellence. But it's possible to get better, and it's possible to do better, and it's possible to make it in whatever field you're trying to go for. But, your first whatever is always going to suck, but you can get better.
Well said, man. Ladies and gentlemen, as I stated earlier, that was Jay Kirby, wrestling extraordinaire podcaster, and overall just a great Power Ranger and a wonderful dude. Family, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, fam.
God, that was great. Guys, as always, be smart, be mindful, and rock on. God bless you guys. As usual, Ninja out.
See, now I'm nervous. See? It's morphin' time.
Mastodon!
Tyrannosaurus.
Woo, baby, you listen to John the Ninja. Oh, your ears are about to go on a vacation. John the Ninja's got what you need.